Welcome to Lead Pods, the official leadership podcast from USMB for pastors and church leaders, where our goal is to increase our impact together.
Hello friends, welcome to episode 95 of the USMB Lead Pods. My name is Matt Erzman, and once again, really grateful to be your host today with another great conversation to share with you. So today we're talking to Nathan Ensz. Nathan is the lead pastor of Kingwood Bible Church in Salem, Oregon. I really enjoyed my conversation with Nathan. First of all, he is obviously ministering and leading a church in a very interesting part of the country. We talk a little bit about what it's like to be a pastor in Oregon these days and some of the struggles and the challenges that might come from that. But today we spend most of our time talking about a marriage conference, a marriage retreat that Nathan has created and has led a few times. It was originally a project that he worked on while he was a student at Fresno Pacific, but now it's a conference that he's led both at his church and I think a couple other places. And he has some really cool ideas for a marriage conference. He shares some specifics about what he's done, but then we also spend some time talking about marriage in churches and how sometimes that can be a struggle to have a marriage ministry that thrives. How can we encourage and equip our married couples in our churches, but also not do that in a way that excludes the singles? I think that's an issue that a lot of churches could work on and improve on. So Nathan had some really helpful tips and some ideas if you might be interested in hosting a marriage retreat at your church. I'm really grateful for Nathan and his ministry in Salem, and I think you'll enjoy this conversation as well. So let's take a quick break to hear from a sponsor, and then we'll get to my conversation with Pastor Nathan Ensz.
Plan now to attend USMB Gathering 2024 in Omaha, Nebraska, July 23rd through the 27th, 2024, where our theme is Salt and Light, Faithful Living in a Secular Culture. Our speakers, Greg Hogue, Natasha Crane, Brian Kluth, Don Morris, and the new National Director will help us focus on living unreservedly in the way of Jesus. You will also have a selection of many great workshops and affinity groups. For more information, visit www.usmb.org/USMB-Gathering-2024 or call 1-800-257-0515.
All right, my friends. Well, today I've got a new friend that I'm excited to introduce you to. Today we're talking to Nathan Ensz. He's the lead pastor of Kingwood Bible Church in Salem, Oregon. And Nathan, you've been there for quite a while. I'm looking forward to hearing more of your story. I didn't get the chance to meet you until convention, I guess a year and a half ago. We sat at the same meal table at some point. We got to chat a little bit. It was great meeting you. So welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being on with us.
Hey, thank you, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's great to have you. And we're going to spend quite a bit of time today talking about a marriage retreat that you and your wife, I guess you mostly formatted, and I'm excited to hear more about that. Mm-hmm. First, if people don't know you, can you share a little bit about you and your family and your time with Kingwood and anything else you'd like to share with us?
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm from this area, actually born in the Salem hospital.
Okay.
I really haven't gone too far in life and never really thought I would live in Salem. I was born in the country about a half an hour from here, or I should say raised in the country a half an hour from here. And always kind of thought Salem is the last place I want to live. But here I am. And
those are dangerous words, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. You know, I love being here. I believe it's where God has me for right now. I don't believe it's where I will always be, but it's where he has me right now. And I'm grateful to be here. So married for 24 and a half years, if I've done the math correct. Nice. And yeah, my wife, Kelsey, is just such a great ministry partner for me. She has jumped in fully and she loves ministry as much as I do. And she is a wonderful ministry partner. My number one, I need her. I really need her. So, yeah. And she brings good balance to me for sure. So we have 3 children, Trenton, Livia, and Carson. Our oldest is 21. He just finished college at Tabor College.
Awesome.
He graduated a semester early, basically to save money.
Nice.
And, and he graduated debt free thanks to that Tabor 20 scholarship.
Yeah,
that's
awesome.
Been huge. And he's trying to figure out what's going to happen next. My daughter, Livia, is a sophomore/junior there. She's going to finish Tabor in 3 years.
Wow.
So
awesome.
Next year will be her final year. Cool. And she's doing great. She flies out tomorrow So it's been really good having her back for a bit here. And then Carson, our youngest son, is a freshman at a private Christian school locally here. So that's,
Awesome.
that's family. Been here at Kingwood for 6.5 years now. And so relatively new to the Mennonite Brethren family, but really grateful to be here. And it's been church revitalization. So Kingwood was a small and dying church, and yet God has just really brought great life to this body of believers here in Salem, Oregon. And just really counted a privilege to be, one of God's servants serving the body of Christ at Kingwood Bible Church in particular, and the Salem area.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. Very cool. And again, this isn't really our main topic for the day. We'll get to your marriage retreat here in just a minute, but I'm just curious, and I want to have our people hear you tell us about ministry in Oregon, because I don't know how much of this is like lore, how much of this is rumor. There's kind of this perception that the Pacific Northwest, maybe specifically Oregon, is a tough place for churches. It's a tough place for Christian ministry. I guess that's the perception that I think a lot of people have. In your experience, has that been true? And what is it like to be an MB pastor in Oregon these days?
Yeah, well, so I can just speak for myself. I can't speak for other pastors, but for me, it's interesting. I just turned 46 a couple days ago, and to me, Oregon is not the same place I grew up. My roots are here. I grew up in the country, so that's part of it. I think it is a difficult environment for sure. My wife and I have known probably at least 20 couples, families who have moved from Oregon in the last couple of years, who are just kind of tired of it. So I think it's politically, it's a tough place to be, but I am just really impressed by the people of God who are here. So while the environment might be tough, I really feel like the people of God are authentic, and their faith runs deep. My wife and I have said a number of times, if you're a believer in Oregon, you're genuine, like you're legit, like you're the real deal. You're not going to be here you're not a Christian out of convenience, because it's not convenient. So that's just that's what I found here. A lot of authenticity. Pastors that I know of from the MB circle here in the Northwest, man, they're just some of the most solid believers that I know. Yeah. Just brothers in Christ who are just solid. So, and a lot of us really feel called to stay here. I mentioned earlier that I might, I don't see myself here forever, but I want to be certain that when I leave, it's because God is calling me and not because I'm running. Because I think if I run, it's going to catch up. Like I could go to the Midwest where you're from, Matt, and part of me wants to. I love going to the Midwest and finding people who I'm like, oh, this is kind of more the Oregon I recall as a kid. But I'm like, well, I could, if I'm doing that out of a run or a fear, I really believe it's going to catch me. Yeah. So I want to plant myself where God has me. And for this season, God has me here in the Northwest, and I'm grateful to be here.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. And I appreciate your heart, because clearly every state, every city needs pastors, but maybe there's certain areas that maybe need especially good pastors, good leaders. And I think you're in one of those spots. So I'm grateful that you're calling that place your ministry home for now. So
yeah, that's cool. Right. Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that with us. Maybe we'll dive into that other time, but today, the main thing I want to talk to you about is you've started doing some of these marriage retreats at your church, and I think it's unique and I think it's awesome. So why don't you tell us, how did this start before we get too deep into it? Where did this idea for a marriage retreat come from?
Yeah. Okay. So I am a recent graduate, May 2022, of Fresno Pacific Biblical Seminary, and got a master's degree in ministry, leadership, and culture. And the final project was a capstone project where I had to develop something that was transferable to another church and that they could actually reproduce. And so, I was trying to think through, what do I do? I was a youth pastor for 17 years, and part of me was like, oh, I'll just develop a youth ministry curriculum I could pass on, or something along the lines of like training for fellow youth pastors. And that part of me was like, oh, I'll do that. But that was like my wheelhouse. I already knew. And I'm like, that's not really who I am today. And so I was like, well, what do I do right now? And I didn't feel like I had enough experience as a lead senior pastor to be like, hey, I'm going to develop something. I haven't been doing this long enough, but I'm like, my wife and I have done premarital counseling for a lot of young people.
Mm-hmm.
And my role as a pastor, I also spend time counseling, not often, but, when a marriage is going through something tough, if they trust me, they come to me, they come to my wife. And so I thought, what, let's do a marriage retreat. Let's try that. Got it approved. And so that's really where this began. And
Cool.
And for the record, this isn't something that I've done a lot of. I've only done this a couple times. Most recently at the PDC convention, I was asked to present this and just share about this. And I loved the opportunity. And I think it was there where my name was passed on to you, because someone was, hey, this needs to be a podcast.
Yeah.
We need to use this. So, when God opens the door, I'm happy to get this out there.
Yeah, very cool. So I'm gathering that you haven't, before you've done this, you never hosted a marriage retreat before. Mm-hmm. So this is kind of new. You have some experience, but the idea of a retreat would be new. So probably a lot of people listening, if they haven't been to a marriage retreat, they at least have a pretty good idea of what like a normal one looks like. So is yours kind of what most of us are probably picturing, or what does your retreat look like?
Yeah, so you're correct, Matt. I had never done a marriage retreat before. I had done 70 plus retreats for youth ministry before this. And I remember people in my church, at my last church, who were like 10 years older than me, they were like, how come the youth always have all the fun? Like, we want to have fun too in the church.
Yeah.
And that's always stuck with me. And so maybe that's part of it. I really, really had the desire to put this retreat on. And I thought, okay, I don't believe I can do this for 2 nights. I don't think that people really want to give 2 nights up. Just married people oftentimes may not want to do that.
Yeah.
But can we do 1 night? And can we make it where we get away for a Friday night, start after dinner at a hotel, use a conference room, and, run a couple sessions on Saturday morning and be done by mid-afternoon, which just allows people enough time to get away, but also if married people have children, they don't always, but if they do, get back to the home, take care of the kids. So that's kind of how this has started, at least. And really, really enjoyed the time that my own church family got away to the Oregon coast and did this and really thoroughly loved it.
Yeah. Awesome. So I know I'll ask you just one kind of really practical question. I think a lot of church leaders wrestle with this idea a little bit of, we want the really practical marriage advice, right? We want our families to be healthy. We want healthy spouses, healthy husbands and wives. We want that really nitty-gritty practical side of things. And there's also people, probably all of us should feel this way, that our Sunday services should be worship services. When we go to church, we want to worship God. We want to learn from the Bible. And so I'm just curious, as your time as a lead pastor and even as a youth pastor, how do you kind of balance those? Because having healthy marriages is very important, but some people may feel like Sunday mornings need to be teaching from the Bible, regardless of whether it's about marriage or not. I guess, is that why you had this retreat, or how do you kind of balance that theology with practical life skill?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, in my 6.5 years here, I think I did like a series on relationships, but it wasn't marriage relationships only. It was just, it was a broader sense. And I also would probably share the same heart as what you mentioned. For me, Sunday mornings, I don't know that I necessarily want to take the time to say, hey, I'm going to address marriage right now. Yeah. I assume that in teaching from Scripture, marriage will come up, but so will all sorts of other relationships.
Yeah.
And I appreciate keeping it that way. So this marriage retreat, I feel, was a time for us to actually get away and say, hey, marriage actually matters. I think one big thing for me is I feel like the church, we have a tendency of going from extremes to marriage really matters. Let's focus on marriage a whole lot. And I feel like in the 90s, the church kind of did that. I was in high school at the time, and I recall marriage retreats happening, and marriage curriculum was out there. And then because not everyone is married, the church has had this aha moment of, hang on a second, we're treating everyone as though they're married when that's not the case. But then I feel like we actually almost swing the other direction and we ignore marriage. And it's interesting because in the church, we say marriage is, if you are married, it's one of the most important relationships you could possibly have. But I feel like in the church, we actually don't necessarily back that up. We're just like, hey, it's the most important relationship apart from your relationship with Christ. But what are we actually doing to back up those words? And so, for me at Kingwood, I felt like, what are we doing? How are we empowering marriages to thrive? And I walked away saying, I don't feel like we're doing anything. And forgive me, Matt, if I'm getting ahead here.
Oh, you're fine.
Even just like talking with ministry colleagues of mine, I was asking them, what are you doing for married people in your church? And if I recall, I think it was like 60% of the people said nothing. We're doing nothing. 40% were like, oh, we're doing something. And when I pressed them, I'm like, well, what are you doing? They're like, well, we have a dynamic women's ministry. I'm like, great, I applaud you for that.
Right.
But that's women's ministry. That's not married ministry. Or we have a great men's ministry. Again, I applaud you, but that's not ministry to the marriage. Well, we take care of their kids. What if there are no kids?
Right.
You're making the assumption that all married people have children. And so I was just like, well, I don't feel like majority of people, at least that I polled, they're really, they weren't doing much for married people in the church. And so that really kind of birthed more this desire for how can we as the church equip our people who are married.
I think it's so important. I'm so glad we're talking about this because I think you're right. I don't know if it's just because it's maybe just an easy thing to slip into, or I'm not sure, but we kind of divide men's women ministry, women's ministry, we have kids ministry, student, whatever. I think we just kind of naturally fit into those roles, but we don't really do what you're talking about and have marriage ministry. And I guess, first of all, I want to be careful. Like, pastors are so busy, right? You've got more on your plate than you can handle. So does everyone listening. So I feel for pastor. We can't offer everything, right? But I guess I am curious. Why do you think that is? As your time in ministry, why don't we focus more on marriages? Do you think we are just too busy, or we just assume that it's happening elsewhere? Or do you have any insight on that?
Yeah. Well, I think part of it is what I mentioned as far as like married versus single. I think that we have not always ministered the best to singles in our church family. I really believe that. And so that's partly to play here. I think that we're overcorrecting though by saying, oh, let's just not minister to the married people. Let's make this for everyone.
Right.
Majority of what we do in the church is for everyone. It needs to stay that way. But if you can have a singles group at a church, you can have a ministry to married people as well. That's not to slight one or the other at all. I think something else has happened here, and I've noticed this I've at least heard this critique of, oh, if it's from the church and it's on ministry, if it's ministry to marriage, it's just going to be another session on Ephesians 5. Like it's a traditional places to go. Now, I am conservative in my theology, and I love Ephesians 5. It's given to us. But I wanted to also develop something that goes beyond. I didn't want to just have something that is like, this is just what you always expect. And I feel like from the 1990s, it was kind of like that was the the way that churches would often approach this. Well, let's just go to Ephesians 5,
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
not wanting to erase that passage. It's there for a reason.
Yeah.
But there is more to marriage than just Ephesians 5.
Yes.
And that's what I really wanted to do in this, was develop something that comes at marriage from a different angle, because for me, perhaps it's because I'm from the Northwest, I'm always hearing the critique, of the conservative church in America. And so I cannot help but hear that. And I'm always trying to kind of tailor what I'm doing to that critique. Whether that critique is correct or not, I'm considering that critique. And okay, that critique is there. So how do I still not change the truth, but how do I minister? And that's what this marriage retreat is really attempting to do.
I think that's very wise. I think that means you're a good leader. You know your audience. I think that's a good thing that we should all be mindful of. I want to hear more about your kind of the details of the retreat here in just a minute. But another thing I just want to get your thoughts on before we get too in the weeds is, I know, again, maybe it's just the stereotype is that a lot of couples, they kind of wait until it's too late to get help sometimes, right? I think
that's right.
A lot of people, they kind of fake their way through it. They try to not make a big, quote unquote, make a big deal out of any fight they've had, or try to keep it together for the kids or whatever. There's all these kind of things where we've heard, and I'm guessing, I don't know any details, but I'm guessing as a pastor, you've had people in your office that are in similar spots where they're struggling and they maybe waited too long to get some help. So I guess is part of the retreat to kind of help these people before it gets to that point? Was that part of your goal here?
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. What can we do right now to resource marriages, to help them thrive, to help them work through some stuff before it is too late? Back when I was a youth pastor, the senior pastor I sat under told me more than once, Nate, people come to me when it's too late, And now as a lead pastor, I can echo what he's saying. And, when people come to me and it's too late, praise God they're coming. I don't want to discredit that. Praise God they're coming.
Absolutely.
But it does make me think about what can we do to equip people in advance.
Yeah.
Does it salvage all marriages? No, of course not. But if it helps better a marriage, praise God for that.
Absolutely.
And so that's a lot of the heart, I think, in this. Yeah.
Cool. That's great. Okay. So you mentioned it's not just Ephesians 5, and you mentioned that you like to have a lot of fun. So what are we in for here? Tell me more about what the actual conference or the retreat looks like.
Yeah. So the couple times I've done this.
Yeah, sure.
It's we do check-in around 4:00, like most hotels have. We've used Holiday Inn, which was incredible for us. I think Holiday Inn around the country is usually pretty accommodating. And, you've got your check-in usually around 4:00. We encouraged the couples to go and get dinner together. And then the actual conference starts at about, I think we did 6:30 or 7, with the very first session running from about 7 until 9. And for each of those sessions, I always made sure that, first off, my wife and I had a team of people who helped us plan and were instrumental in orchestrating. So I had another couple who was actually the head elder at my church, and his wife. They were like the MCs for the weekend. They would do a couple short liturgical readings. So every Moment Holy, if you're familiar with that devotional book, we would do those. There's a devotional for when you're at the beach, and so I think we started with that one. If you're in the Midwest, you're probably not going to do that one.
Right.
And that's okay. And it doesn't have to be every Moment Holy, but that's just a really great practical devotional book with some great liturgies, and always looking for something that would get people interacting. So that's probably the youth pastor part within me. Okay, I don't want just content. I want people to engage with one another. That's what a retreat is about. How can I get this couple interacting with this other couple? How can I get this older married couple? When we did this, we had a married couple who had been married for 60 years. 60 years, Matt. That's crazy.
Wow, that's awesome.
And then we had another couple who had been married for 3 or 4. I'm how can I get these two couples together? a lot of it is by the interaction through games and mixers and enjoying one another.
Yeah.
And so that's a big piece of it. And then there was the teaching portion. And I did that. My wife was with me on that. And we kind of fed off of each other. I intentionally had and have this marriage retreat where it's a fair amount of teaching. It's quote lecture style. Hopefully it's done in a creative way.
Uh-huh.
But I also incorporate every probably 10 or so minutes, like, hey, let's have some breakout time where at your table, you and your spouse and the couples at your table are talking about, here's a question. And I'll just throw out, here's a question that pertains to where we're at. Talk about this at your table for 2-3 minutes. We come back together. Let's hear a few of those responses. Just trying to make it interactive. So, and then at the close of the evening, allowing people to hang out, to play games, go to the pool, go to the hot tub, go to bed, do whatever is best,
Yeah.
And I would say Saturday was really kind of similar. It was breakfast at the hotel. Holiday Inn has a great breakfast.
Nice.
Little plug there for them.
Yeah.
And then a session together with more games and interaction, a break. And we had 2 following sessions on Saturday. We had lunch at the close, and then we dismissed everyone and we were done. Topic. I'm not sure if you want to go with topic right now or not.
Yeah, that was my next question. Is what do you have kind of a main thing that you hit, or is it kind of what are some of the kind of main things you want people to take away from it?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So what I really centered on here was comparison Friday evening, uniqueness Saturday morning, and then commitment later Saturday morning. So just breaking those down a little bit more. Comparison Friday night. I have found that first off, it's just human that we just compare ourselves to everyone else.
Yeah.
And marriage is no different. So we are comparing ourselves to, how come my spouse is not more like so-and-so's spouse?
Right. Right.
I wish that he or she was a greater spiritual leader. I wish that he or she was more open and verbal like so-and-so.
Yeah.
I wish that he or she was more caring like so-and-so's spouse. How come my marriage isn't like that?
Yeah.
But Matt, I think it actually goes deeper than that. I find that we also compare ourselves to what we anticipated marriage to look like.
Yeah.
So if that makes sense, it's like the longer we're married, we are comparing my present reality with what I assumed marriage was going to be.
Right.
And the thing is, going into marriage, how can you ever know what it's going to be?
Right.
You can't.
Right.
But we all have these expectations on, here's what my marriage is going to be like. My wife and I, again, have offered 30 plus counseling sessions for newlyweds. And, they all have these ideas on, hey, here's what my marriage is going to be like. We're going to cook together all the meals. Like, that's great. Good luck with that. And that might work, Yeah. But, eventually life happens and it's just not this cakewalk. It's not everything you expect.
Right.
And then you wake up one day and you're like, whoa, my marriage is so different than what I thought it was going to be like. And you end up in this comparison trap.
Yeah.
And anytime we compare ourselves to other marriages or even to the marriage we thought we were going to have, we lose.
Yeah.
That's just how comparison works in life. And it works that way in marriage as well.
Yeah.
So that's Friday evening. It's really wanting couples to be honest. Like, have I given into this comparison trap? Chances are really great that we have, because I myself and my wife find ourselves still tempted over and over again to compare ourselves to what we expect. It happens. So Saturday morning is focusing on uniqueness, and just to say, okay, if we're not to compare ourselves to other marriages or even to what we anticipated our marriage to look like, then how has God fashioned our marriage to be unique? Like, we have a marriage like no one else.
Yeah.
And it may not be what we exactly anticipated it to be like, but it's what we have today. And God is in this. And how can we celebrate the uniqueness? So my marriage is a reflection of what my parents' marriage was like and what my in-laws' marriage was like, but it's not their marriage.
Yeah.
We're unique. And how can we celebrate that? And so we actually have a little activity, just using, like, if you go into like Home Depot or someplace like that, and you go to like the paint section, they've got those little swatches of like paint chips or whatever you call those, or you like, so we'll have those and just ask like each spouse to individually, because we are individuals, like to go and find a color that represents you. And if my wife were in this podcast right now, she'd say, Nathan, be certain to mention that all the paint colors are unique. Like there's no duplicates on those tables in that marriage retreat room. So find a color that represents you. And then once those couples all do that, we have them say, okay, now take this. And there's an app you can download on your phone, and you can actually take a picture of your paint chip, and you can take a picture of your spouse's paint chip, and you can blend those two together to define and determine your new color. Yeah. This is the two of you together. And we say, okay, now take that color that you've just created and go find the best representation in this room of that color from those paint chips. And my wife and I were just blown away. I don't know how often this happens, but I've been blown away by like the times where couples will say, whoa, that's the color that we painted our living room. Oh, that's cool. The color that we have in our bedroom, or that's the color of our couch or whatever. I'm just like, that, is that just coincidental? I don't know. But that was a really cool thing.
That's very cool. That's a great idea.
Uniqueness to say, hey, God has fashioned you unique. And how do you both thrive? And then the final session is really to bring it back to commitment, which I think marriage-wise is a foundation, biblically speaking. So it's bringing it back to commitment. Okay, the two of you made a commitment, whether it was 3 years ago or 60 years ago. And God wants you to still honor that commitment. Yeah. And so it just reinforces the commitment. And I've found, at least in the couple times I've been able to do this, that marriages are, to me, almost primed to be like, yes, we want to reaffirm this commitment. Because when you take comparison out of the equation and you replace it with uniqueness, I feel like the couples are ready to say, we're ready to recommit. We affirm the commitment that we made. And so that's maybe in more than a nutshell, that's marriage retreat. And that's that focus there.
That's awesome, Nate. I love it. Like, I love I think you're so right that the comparison thing, of course, there's couples we know in our life we might compare ourselves to. Like you mentioned, we might compare our like idealized selves. And then, of course, movies and TV and music, culture. For sure. There's comparisons all over the place. But I love your paint chip thing. That's awesome. That's a great idea. Yeah. So one thing I know you've mentioned that you've done this a couple times. I think you did it at Kingwood, right? And then I think your second one was a little bit of another interesting experience. Maybe it's slightly unique. Do you want to, as we kind of start to wrap up here, can you explain what you did at your second one and how it was different? Sure.
In my cohort, my cohort for FPU, I had Sylvia Lopez. I think she's okay if I say her name. She was just someone in my cohort who we became really good friends. And our final week of residency, she and I were in the same carload from San Francisco up to Yosemite. And as we were talking, she was asking me, we hadn't presented our capstone projects yet, but we all knew what our capstone projects were. And she was asking me, so tell me, Nathan, about this capstone project and how it's going. And I just remember her saying to me, Nathan, her dad's a pastor and it's a Hispanic church, if you haven't figured out already. And she was like, my dad's church family needs this. And I was like, Sylvia, if it ever would work out, I would just love to come down and do this. So when it came time to give our presentations, my project was awarded. I believe that Sylvia's project got first place, and I want to give props to her because hers did. I saw her recently. She works for Multiply now, Coast here, and she was like, she didn't realize that her project got first place. I'm like, no, Sylvia, your project got first place. My project was awarded $1,200 for a church to like fly me down and have me go and present this.
Cool. Very cool.
And so when it was awarded, I went to Sylvia and I was like, Sylvia, if your church wants it, you got it.
Oh, that's cool.
So got up in the door up for that. And my wife and I thoroughly loved it, just to go down and minister in this Hispanic church from Fresno, California. We met in Santa Cruz, California at another sister MB church out there, had a wonderful time on the West Coast here and just loved it. I spoke through an interpreter, which was just phenomenal, So like, though there was this language barrier, oh man, just loved my time with these brothers and sisters of mine. And though language was, a difficulty, like we were just bonded so well. And I counted a privilege to be able to speak into their life and to share this marriage retreat with them. So
that's awesome. That's great.
I loved it. Yeah.
Very cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Or time's running out here, Nathan. I guess for people listening, if they're interested in doing this, like it sounds like, do you travel and do this? Or you also mentioned that part of the goal of the program was it's something that other churches could replicate. So tell us about that. If a pastor or church leader listening wants to do either exactly this or something similar, what can we do?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I guess the very first piece is if a church was interested in, say, having me and my wife come out to their church, we are open to that. We don't feel like we can do it extremely often because Kingwood is my primary ministry. I've got a few other things on top of that. But at the same time, my wife and I really have a heart for this. And we've kind of presented it to the Lord. We're like, Lord, if you want us to use this in greater ways, we're open. And so if a church is like, hey, we have the ability to make this happen, we would be very interested in a conversation about that.
Cool.
But I think beyond that, I know that not every church can or is interested. And like you said, this is something that we just really want to make transferable and reproducible. And so if a church is interested in making this happen, I've got this curriculum that is here. I've got, like the paint chips. I've got like a link that is like, you just click on it and it will take you to like, hey, here's all the paint chips that you can get. Here's the app that I mentioned. Here's the PowerPoints that have been put together for you. Here's suggestions on games. Here's a suggestion for a schedule. Here's a curriculum and recommended first speaker, second speaker, not that you have to follow it, but I feel like it's helpful if a church were to say, hey, we're going to make this happen on our own. Great. Take this curriculum. I would love to just get it out there. So I would say if there's interest, I am more than happy to begin dialoguing about that. I think the easiest way is to email me. My email address is Nathan, Nathan, at kingwoodbible.net. There you go. And I'd be very happy to just, email this on and people could at least maybe begin to think about it. And I'd be happy to talk about it with them and help them work through some stuff. So,
yeah, awesome. Well, Nathan, I just appreciate your heart for marriage. I know you're not like necessarily therapist or counselor or whatever, but your passion and but you have this desire for healthy marriage, a healthy biblical marriage.
Sure.
I really appreciate that. So thank you for making this program available. And again, I appreciate your heart for ministry in a place that I know that can be difficult. So this has been great. I've enjoyed our time together. What else? Anything else we need to mention before we close out?
No, just Matt, thanks for having me. I remember the very first time I saw you at my table, I was like, man, he's got cool hair. So, I can see you. You still have cool hair.
Oh, well, thank you. That's very kind of you. Very kind.
I'm just, Matt, I am really so grateful for what you're doing. I think it's great. I love it that USMB values this enough to say, let's make this happen. I don't catch all of the podcasts, but like I am catching more and more of them because I just find that they're actually just so helpful. And I love the resources we have within our USMB family. So thanks for being a part of it and really making this happen because it's giving on your part. Huge thank you.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. Thank you. We've got a lot of very gifted people in our denomination who help make it possible, and great people like you to have great content to share. So thanks again for your time, Nathan. We'll look forward to chatting again soon.
Yeah, thanks, Matt.
USMB's spring lineup of lead cohorts is just around the corner, providing an opportunity for you to explore topics pertaining to life and ministry in an online community. Lead cohorts are starting in early February with topics including leading worship well, apologetics, leading through uncertain times, children's ministry, contemplative conversations, a New Testament survey, emotional intelligence, youth ministry, and more. Register for a spring lead cohort on the USMB website at www.usmb.org/lead-cohorts.
Well, Nathan, thanks again, my friend, for sharing with us today. I really enjoyed talking with him. And Nathan, it's not just because you complimented my hair. You're a great guy. So thanks for being with us today. And I was reminded listening back, man, a lot of Nathan's tips that he talks about at the conference are good for all of us, right? Both of us as church leaders and pastors, and also just for those of us who are married, to think about those comparison things, to really think about and really concentrate on what makes us unique as a married couple. I think there's a lot of really good things for us no matter what stage of life that we might be in. And like we talked about there, I think it's wise for us as church leaders to really think about what we can offer our church members as far as marriage ministry. So I guess I encourage you to think about that and ways that you can talk about marriage and help build strong marriages in ways that doesn't exclude the singles in your church. That can be a tough tightrope, but I think it's something that might be worth all of us working on. All right, and with that, I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up. So thanks again so much for listening today. I don't know about where you are, but here in Kansas, it is stinking cold outside. So I hope you are doing well, staying safe and warm out there. Have a great week ahead, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time here on Lead Pods.
Thanks for listening to Lead Pods. Make sure you don't miss an episode by subscribing to our show wherever you're listening today. Learn more by visiting usmb.org. And be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We'll see you next time as we learn more practical tools to increase our impact together.